don't prune Salvia curviflora. This used in flower until more towards September. By accident, I didn't prune by accident. I just didn't prune it. And it bloomed all summer. And this year we didn't prune them again. And they flowered since the beginning of June. And they've been pumping out flowers the whole summer.
Somebody was using night butterfly as a replacement for a variety called Chimborazo. So I bought it on his recommendation and it flops.
Oh.
With me.
Mine's not floppy, Alan.
Jimmy, I only have your word for that.
This is a relative of a butylon.
Oh.
Well, it's Phymosia. Phymosia is a Mexican plant. It's the deepest wine.
That is a plant that we did lose in the garden last year.
Ah.
I had cuttings, so I haven't lost it entirely. But I saw that growing at Kifsgate Court in Gloucestershire. And it was at the bottom of the ravine, which is a frost pocket. And I thought, Jesus, if they can grow it, we can grow it, So I left it, but it got frosted last year.
Look, it's just lucky you have the babies coming on.
Yeah.
And you can grow them from seed as well. So just watch for seed. I have a few coming on from seed, and cuttings easy. But it's like a butylon, but it's so dark, so beautiful. Quite a big shrub here now. And we're 1,000 feet.
The wonderful thing is, Jimmy, if you look deep into the heart of that flower, turn it to face you and enjoy that center. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Isn't it incredible?
No smell. But yeah, it's a gorgeous plant because the butylons generally don't survive with me. So I was surprised to see this surviving. I've really got into Agastaches. They're definitely more simple. And there is a part of me that loves that in the sand gardens, that they're much more simple, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of something like this. This is a beautiful Agastache called Fleur, and it's a salmon. It's a beautiful salmon color.
I'd say that they are becoming very, very popular now. I notice them for sale in wholesale nursery catalogues and things like that. But I don't like the way people pronounce it because I always really feel it should be Agastache.
And I think that is the right way to say it, isn't it? Somebody told me that yesterday. No, someone told me that yesterday, that an American garden speaker says it that way, and that's supposedly the right way to say it.
I say. Well, there we are. We're ahead of the curve, Jimmy.
There you go, Alice.
Talking of names, didn't you discover that Fleur was actually named after someone you knew, like once you were growing it?
Yeah, I asked this nurseryman from Holland the other day, oh, what's Fleur? And he said, Fleur, Fleur. And I was like, oh God, I know Fleur. Fleur owned Klein Plantage, a beautiful garden and nursery in Holland that just closed recently, but it's named after her. So I don't know, it changes a plant for me. Every time I look at that, I think of that lovely person.
Yeah.
But I think the thing with a lot of these fancy colored Agastaches, that they definitely don't like to be cluttered by other plants. They're perfect in the sand garden where there's no leaves even at the base of them. And they can get eaten easily with slugs in spring. So I think sand is a good way to grow these because these generally will die. The tallest of them all, of these ones, and I think the best, is one called Kolibri. Do you grow that one?
No, I don't.
Oh,
No.
You have to get this. It's amazing. And like perfect again for small gardens because it's this really straight up perennial. Really straight up. Easy from cuttings. You have to do the young shoots on the Agastaches because they go hollow. But it's a gorgeous color. So
interesting point you just made, Jimmy, without elucidating on it too much. But there are several plants that if you're going to take cuttings from them, you need to do them when the cuttings are really small because the stems go hollow. And once they go hollow, they rot. They don't root. When you're taking a cutting, it's a race between rooting and rotting. So if you take it as close to the node as possible, just underneath the leaf node, as close to the bottom of the node as possible. I mean, Melianthus major is another one, isn't it? They go hollow and you can't root them.
Yeah. I've never done Melianthus actually. But yeah, the Agastaches, I suppose, like salvias, get the cuttings done before you go any further into the end of summer.
Yeah.
And Lobelia Hadspen Purple. I know it's an old plant, but God, it's a good plant. Yeah. And it, like all the other lobelias like this, they just get gobbled up and die. But this survives. There's big clumps of it out there, and they're just, I love that rich purpley color, whatever it is. Easy from division then in the spring.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next?
And you've done a lot
Okay.
of work, just to mention your sand garden. You've done a lot of work kind of thinning your sand garden. You talk about light getting to the bottom of a plant. I mean, that's basically never going to happen in my garden, if I'm honest.
No, it's hard.
Everything's jostling for room.
Yeah, it's a different way of gardening for me. To be honest, it's a much calmer way of gardening as well, a much easier way. There's very little maintenance in the sand garden. Like, as long as you keep the sand clean, and we put actually a beach pebble on top of the sand because the sand looks a bit dirty.
That's nice. I'm glad you said that, because I did see a sand garden earlier this year, and I just didn't like that surface. I thought, well, can't they put some gravel over it or something?
Definitely the gravel.
Yeah.
And it melts it, or it blends in with the path. The path is a very lovely cream gravel. So it's definitely the sand works better. We had them packed full of succulents last year, all the aeoniums, and it was just too much. So we have them interspersed with agaves, and but it was your garden, Alan. That was the first time I saw that sort of planting, and that's a long time ago. And God, I remember that. I remember that day so much. And even the last time I visited, I just loved that. Every angle I looked, just so inspirational.
Well, you need to come back because it's getting better and better.
Well, the Desert Wash this year has had more flower on more plants than we've ever had before, and I think possibly it was because of the summer of 2022, which was very, very hot. And we had Agave montana flowering here, which, as people from Kew tells me, is the first one to flower in this country, which I think is fantastic. Montana comes from the mountains in Mexico, and it's not that, we haven't been growing it for that long, but our plant is 19 years old. They normally flower at about 20. But because the sad thing is they flower and die.
Yeah, they die.
I'm not flowering yet, Jimmy. I'm waiting.
I was going to say to you, I'll be up with you in February, I think. I'm coming up to the Snowdrop Snowdrop event. So
yeah,
I'll be up to see your snowdrops.
Just pack your wallet out.
I know. No.
It's going to be an expensive day. Oh, look at that hydrangea.
Now, it's not really showing the colours. It's the softest pink.
Is this aspera?
It's aspera Koki. Koki. And it is, I don't know how, there's an apricot peach in that flower. Again, hard to say that.
So for people who are listening to the audio version, those sort of bracts are this beautiful, pale, blushing pink, but then all those little flowers. I mean, on the screen, they've got
a lace cap flower with the real flowers in the middle of the lace cap, and the bracts around the outside, the bracteose petals around the outside, are there to design to actually attract insects. But they don't want the insects on them. They want to go into the middle of the flower, to the little tiny flowers in the middle.
The bracts look like little butterflies.
Yeah. It's a parent of, is it hot chocolate? Is a hydrangea?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's parent. I think it's much better. It's got huge leaves. You can see the big leaves.
Yeah.
This is like, I was driven mad yesterday with people walking into the bed to try and find the name. So I have to put a big label on it. Every time I looked out the kitchen window, somebody appeared out of the hydrangea. So look at the size of the flowers as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And a dinner plate.
It is very interesting, Jimmy, that you said what you just said, because when you get an interesting plant like that really has a standout quality about it, you just can't stop the beggars from going in there and tramping over. They'll tread on everything to get to it. They don't see anything, but they're quarry. And when
yeah. No, and I know, and even if I put the label out there, they probably won't see the label. They walk in.
Or they'll take the label.
Oh yeah, well that was a big thing this year actually. Labels going missing. I had to get a Canadian tour to speak this into the phone the other day because I couldn't remember the name of it. Scheherazade.
Oh yeah.
It is beautiful. I've gone mad on lilies. The lily beetle has gone. I brought him over to England last year. A big
Thank you,
suitcase.
Jimmy. You couldn't have taken him somewhere else other than my garden.
Do you still have lily beetle?
Yeah, we do still have lily beetle, although after last winter, it's not as bad. But
Yeah.
I mean, once it gets going, it was very slow to start this year, but once it gets going, it just keeps multiplying.
We haven't had it for 2 years, so I ended up buying loads of lilies. Oh, well over 200 lilies there. And Miss Freya as well is just starting to flower.
This spray is fabulous.
Oh, look at her.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And they're just, I'm just in love with lilies. They just give you that explosion of madness this time of year, mixed through the dahlias. And this one here is called Chocolate Event.
Yeah.
Kind of weird looking. Looks like a dessert.
Disease.
It's funny, like peachy ends to the petals and then like more burgundy in the middle. Lovely combo.
Look at this. This is really tall, red velvet. Red velvet's about 7 foot high. And I have it mixed with this leichtlinii.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I bought this, and then some of these must have been in with the order. But they actually look well together. So if you're looking for good tall lilies, red velvet and leichtlinii.
I think a little tip about tall lilies is when you buy tall lilies, which are sometimes known as tree lilies, do be aware that they won't reach their maximum height for at least 2 years. It takes them a couple of years to really get there. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Because I have put in tree lilies this year, and I'm like, God, I thought you were going to be much taller. Red Desire is a huge one that we have this year. Like it's probably 6 foot, but I think it's going to be enormous. Red Desire, huge red flowers. Yeah, I'm having fun with lilies now. I suppose I had just completely given up, like a lot of people with lilies.
I'm still in the giving up period at the moment.
Giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did see a few lily beetles at yours, Alan.
Yeah, you did.
I disposed of them. I think that it's unfortunate with lily beetles that non-gardeners, well, I suppose they haven't got any lilies to be devoured, but they look at them and they think they're some sort of ladybird. I've certainly been to non-gardening friends and they're like, oh, look, I've got so many ladybirds.
Yeah.
Not so much.
They're not the ones you want. Just a little woodland plant that's flowering now, and that's like this cluster of deep yellow flowers. Now these are really beautiful. Lysimachia paridiformis, var paridiformis, and it's low down. It has to have shade. It doesn't run. It forms these beautiful rosettes like a Paris nearly. And it's like a Paris with a cluster of deep yellow flowers, and it flowers in August, September. It's a beautiful woodland plant. There's very little colour apart from lilies in the woodland gardens at the moment, and Roscoeas. But these Lysimachias, there's a few different types of them. Do you know that one, Alan?
I got something very similar, Jimmy, which with me grows very, very short because I'm dry. And a friend of mine who has a wet garden, she has a natural stream running through it. I mean, it grows 3 times as big as it does with me.
Yeah,
and she said, "Oh, look, mine's bigger than yours."
I was going to say I hear that all the time, but
it's got lovely sort of glossy thin leaves and like a pale midrib on those leaves. It's beautiful.
It got like last summer when we had really hot weather, it hated that really hot weather. So it probably really enjoyed the month of July here.
Yeah.
So let's see. And then 2 more. There's 2 more. Am I allowed 2 more?
Yeah.
You're very special that I picked a Roscoea.
No, you shouldn't, you heathen. You
We're very honoured.
I'll bring it to my mum today. I remember going to the Wisley Plant Fair a few years ago, and I some way I managed to get in early through a side gate or something. Anyway, I got in early, and I found this nursery that had grown a lot of Roscoeas from seed, and I just greedily chose the best ones out of a big batch of them, and this was one of them, and it's bulked up really well, but just those deep flowers. I just think Roscoeas are super. Spice Island now is very like this, but it's big, really tall one. It doesn't flower till September, and they definitely on the edge of shade, not too much shade, not too much sun. And the other thing is not too dry,
Yeah,
not too
that's why they
dry.
don't do it for me.
Yeah. So if I notice when we have a wet summer or the middle of the summer is wet, the Roscoes will do well. Now that doesn't mean they need to sit in winter wet or anything. And we just finish on the last this Eryngium that I'm always babbling on about. It's one of the best new perennials in the last 5 years. It's Eryngium guatemalense and got really spiky foliage and these spectacular stems that go up to about 5 foot, 4 or 5 foot, with the black centers and silver. And it was collected in Guatemala, I think, by Bledden and Sue and Cook Farm. And it's amazing how well it's done here. And last winter, no problem at all. Have it in the sand garden. It'll look really well in the sandy area. And
Yeah,
it's fabulous. Easy to grow from seed. The seed is sown in the autumn. But it's a plant that I'd love to see it in the trade. And I have Eryngium Big Blue out there. It's fantastic, but it's floppy. It just comes
I
up
know.
and then
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this stays upright and it's just covered in these black silvery flowers, which are just gorgeous.
That's the thing. You've got the black center, like quite a little dome in
Yeah,
the center of that, and
yeah,
then such silvery stars, those bracts that come
yeah,
out from the center.
yeah.
So
I just
eye-catching.
I was just thinking, isn't it amazing that, I mean, here we are talking to Jimmy Blake, a foremost wonderful gardener, plantsman. Your knowledge is huge and all the rest of it. We know that. And we're going through all these fantastically flamboyant plants. And then we come to the crescendo, and my favorite is this, he says.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it comes back to that. It comes back to that sort of species plant, doesn't it?
It does. And the fact it's coming from Guatemala,
Yeah.
um, I desperately would love to see Guatemala go into the mountains. The most
You will,
exciting.
Jimmy, you will.
I will eventually. I went to Romania a few weeks ago and I had the most magic 2 days of the last few years, I'd say. Better than any crazy festival I've been at um but I basically found this guy on Airbnb, uh, nothing else. Airbnb, and he did tours of castles. So I said to him, would you just bring me up the mountains? Just keep stopping and let me out. So we did 12 hours the first day and I got to see all the woodland plants. We were dodging bears a lot of the time. Uh, but I can't describe the magic of seeing carpets of Astrantia in woodland, in shade, big geums sitting in really wet soil. Uh, it was like a master. I learned so much within like those few hours. And then the next day we went further up and got a ski lift up onto the top of the mountain and saw these carpets of primulas and rhododendrons. It was
Yeah.
it it was I just felt this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to make sure I get to see these places. They're not far away. They're, it's not a big expedition to the Himalayas. And for me, that was just magic. And there were simple plants that I grow, and suddenly I learned how to grow them even better.
You do know, Jimmy, I can't help thinking that, well, you're not that old, but I'm thinking to myself, he says it's not that far away, but this thing is going to grow. So they will become that far away because you will want to go to China and you will want to go up the Himalayas.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's just that magic seeing plants in their natural habitat, I think.
I mean, when you look through catalogues and things, I mean, the Wyn Joneses, for instance, and people like Plan Global, Nick Mesa, and you see these exotic names found something Pradesh or something,
Yeah.
and these wonderful names that you do really feel that pull that you want to go, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's getting the time to go, but I suppose you just have to make the time, don't you? That's the thing. We can spend our life saying we don't have the time to do things, and I
Make
don't
it
want to
happen.
regret.
Actually, that is a very nice way to end because that is a little piece of philosophy there, but I mean, it is so true. We spend our life saying we don't have to, we lifetime saying we don't have time. We must have time.
Well, also, it leads us very nicely onto the idea of FLOMO, because I imagine, although a lot of those plants, segue, a lot of those plants you already grow, I think FLOMO, which if you've never seen one of these podcasts before, a fear of missing out you get about a flower or a plant, doesn't necessarily have to be something you don't have. It can be maybe a way of planting. So we'll come on to maybe a FLOMO, which may or may not be linked to a trip to Romania. My FLOMO, I'm delighted you haven't brought one along, actually, because then it's another plant on the plant list for the podcast, is Kniphofia rufa, I think it is.
Oh, I have it, yeah.
Which it's funny, before this, I thought every time we do a podcast with you, the kind of photo folder I put together looking through your Instagram is just 50% FLOMO. Things we haven't mentioned, but which I see as I'm kind of trawling through the pictures and the videos. And so Kniphofia rufa, it's a species one, it's hardy, it's got sort of thin leaves, but these lovely kind of quite airy, delicate red hot pokers of yellowy green at the bottom and more orangey red at the top, I think, and such a characterful plant.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plant. I eventually got it grown properly this year because I got a big pot bound plant instead of buying plants with just a single stem. So I think that's the way to go with it, or it'll disappear easy enough. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so I'd like to add that to my garden eventually. It's not exactly a triumph, my garden at the minute, but we'll gloss over that.
Jimmy's right about that. You need a big plant, because I think I bought 5 and I planted them far too close together deliberately, and they have made one big single clump, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
That is the way to grow it.
Yeah,
I'll bear that in mind. Must buy 5. I'll tell that to the other half as I'm parting with the money. Must buy 5. Jimmy, do you have any FLOMO to share?
Oh I think I really want somebody to bring me to Mexico to see salvias in the wild.
Yeah.
It's not a lot to ask. I'd like it to be organized. I'd like to feel safe doing it. I tried to go to Mexico to see them on my own a few years ago, and I pulled out of it because a lot of people said, I don't think where you're going is going to be safe. And I love traveling on my own. I love to disappear into the wilds. But the more I do this salvia videos this summer, the more I just really, really would love to see somebody. Like, there's a lot of those salvias are species salvias, and I just love to see them in the wild.
You see dahlias there too.
And see dahlias as well. So maybe we should go on tour and like podcast on tour.
Can you imagine? Talking dirty live from Mexico. That'd be a dream.
I remember
filthy, everybody.
I remember someone talking I went to the Salvia Summit in America years ago, and I remember that somebody talking about an expedition in, I think it was somewhere down there near Mexico anyway, and they were talking about salvias grown in a field, but there was also a bull in the field. So they had to like try and get to the salvias without the bull chasing them.
That's the kind of See, most of us only have mild peril in our lives. We need more peril to keep us feeling alive.
Yeah.
And Alan, where are you feeling with your FLOMO?
I'm going to plump for something that Jimmy showed today, and it's the very last item that he showed, which is Eryngium guatemalensis, however you say it, with that black and silver. I just love the idea of it, but I want lots of it, so I'm going to go and look for lots of it right now.
He's going to be on his computer.
Well, this has been everything we hoped for. I think if you haven't watched previous Jimmy episodes, I mean, there's all kinds of wonderful treasures to be had in there, regardless of whether we caught up with you in the midst of bleak winter. You always have fabulous plants to share. And if you're not following him on Instagram, well, you must, because regular salvia updates have been, you can go back and watch all of those reels and just sunrise tours of Hunting Brook, all kinds of wonders, and some fabulous clothes as well. What was the story behind your tank top, by the way?
Oh, it's a cheap yoke. It's not like made locally, but from organic wool or anything. It's just it's just a cheap thing.
Maybe
like myself.
Jimmy, all I can say is, you stylish fella, there is cheap and there is very good value.
Inexpensive.
And you are the latter. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Enjoy Hunting Brook. Enjoy your Salvia and Dahlia celebration day, and we'll catch up with you in the
Okay.
future.
Thank you. I really
Until
enjoyed
next
that.
time. Happy
All
gardening,
right.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
All the best, Jimmy. Bye bye.
Bye.
You should try breastfeeding. I mean, don't try breastfeeding. 'Cause
I've never tried it.
it's a whole new world of hunger.
Oh, really? So I started getting, what do you do? Picking out the best.
Selecting.
Selecting. And of course, well, what's that called?
I don't know.
No, let's move on.
You
Can't
just
remember.
taunted us with this amazing one that we don't know the name of.
No, I didn't write it down. No, I can't think of the name of it. If you want to probably, sorry, that's Billy running.
Jimmy, can I interrupt you a minute? I'm
Yeah.
really loving your dresser behind you. It's very interesting.
Dresser.
I'm just nosy, Jimmy. I just love looking at people's treasures.
God knows what's over there.